They say candles make a room feel warm. I used to believe that. But that night, under soft chandeliers and flickering light, I realized some fires just masked the cold. It was my birthday. My 30th. My mother insisted on a party, even though I said I wanted something quiet. "You've earned a celebration," she said. But the way she said it made me feel like a guest in someone else's life. The room was filled with people I hadn't spoken to in years. Cousins who only texted when they needed money, neighbors who smiled too wide, and an uncle I hadn't seen since the last funeral. The cake was beautiful. Red velvet, 3 tiers, gold writing. "To our star," it read. I didn't feel like a star. I felt like a prop. When they dimmed the lights, I leaned toward the candles and closed my eyes. I didn't make a wish. I just exhaled. The flames died one by one, and with them, something inside me dimmed too. Then came the sound that cut the room, my uncle's fork against his wine glass. "Everyone," he said, standing, "let's raise a glass to the birthday girl. Not just for another year around the sun, but for her incredible fortune." I looked up. "She didn't tell you?" He chuckled, looking around. $12 million from her godfather's estate. Generous, right? I couldn't breathe. My name, my money, my privacy, now floating in the air like smoke. There was a silence. Then laughter. Not mine. "Oh, come on," someone said. "Why keep it a secret?" Another voice. "You're practically family, Uncle Mark. Maybe she was waiting to surprise us." I scanned the room, trying to find someone who looked as shocked as I felt. But no one met my eyes. They clapped, they toasted, they smiled. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, pretending to laugh along. But inside, I was staring at the last candle still flickering on the cake. And for the first time, I wished I could blow out the whole room. The days leading up to the party were filled with noise I didn't make. Group chats buzzing about decorations, calls from my mother about catering and color themes, my aunt asking for guest counts, like it was a wedding. All of it spun around me, but never through me. I nodded, agreed, stayed polite, like always. I've never been the center of anything. Not in my family, not in my life. I was the quiet one, the calm one. The good girl. I learned early that quiet was safer. That being invisible was more comfortable than being misunderstood. While my cousins performed loud achievements, med school, MBA, Instagram, worthy weddings, I stayed in the background. I paid off my student loans on a quiet salary. I worked double shifts when Dad's health went bad. I gave when I could. I didn't expect applause, but I also didn't expect silence to be so lonely. Then, 2 months ago, everything shifted. A letter arrived on a gray Wednesday morning. My godfather, Charles, had passed. He was my mother's cousin, an old-school man who always wore cufflinks and kept handwritten ledgers. He wasn't close to anyone in our family, but he always sent me cards, always signed them for when you fly. In his will, he left me everything, $12 million, not to my mother, not to my cousins, to me. I remember staring at the number like it was a misprint. I hadn't seen him in years, but he saw me. Somehow. I didn't tell anyone, not because I was hiding, but because I didn't want the money to become the only thing they saw. I opened a trust. I changed my passwords. I created distance. But still, I wanted to believe I could celebrate my birthday with people who loved me beyond the decimal point. So when my mother called, insisting on the party, I agreed. A part of me, small and still foolish, hoped it would be a gathering of warmth. That maybe, just maybe, they'd treat me the same. That my silence could still belong. But in every conversation that week, I felt like a ghost in my own life. My name was on the invitation, my photo was on the cake, but no one asked how I was, what I'd been feeling. They only asked about head counts and wine. I smiled. I nodded. I helped pick the playlist. But deep down, I knew. When people only see your utility, they never ask how you're really doing. They just want to make sure you still show up. My family taught me early that love was currency. Not the soft, warm kind that wrapped around you like a blanket, but the kind that came with price tags and IOUs. When I was 11, I stayed home from school for a week to take care of my mom after her gallbladder surgery. I made her tea, helped, her to the bathroom, even set alarms to give her medication. No one asked me to. No one said thank you either. It was just expected. That's how it started. By 16, I was babysitting my cousin's twins every weekend so she could go to her massage therapy school. At 18, I co-signed a car loan for my brother. He was 23 and jobless at the time. The car was totaled in 6 months. I never saw a dime. He laughed it off, said, "You're good with money anyway." It didn't matter that I was still eating dollar store noodles or skipping birthdays for night shifts. The unspoken rule was this: if you're not causing trouble, you must be doing fine. And if you're doing fine, you owe the rest of us. I paid off my mom's second surgery when I was 24. Quietly, no fanfare, just signed the papers, handed over the check. She told her friends that my uncle had helped her out. I heard it secondhand. That one stung more than I admitted at the time. At 27, I gave my cousin $15,000 to start a food truck. He never registered the business. I drove past the truck once. He was using it to sell knockoff sneakers in a grocery store parking lot. I didn't confront him. I just stopped asking about it. I thought maybe if I gave enough, one day someone might give back, or at least see me. But love, in my house, was a ledger. Give and give and give, and when you need, somehow you're selfish, dramatic, ungrateful. So I learned to tuck my needs away. I kept my voice even, my tone polite. I became the responsible one, the peacemaker. The background. It wasn't that I wanted recognition. I just didn't want to be a transaction, but that was the deal. In our family, silence wasn't golden. It was the down payment. And I'd spent a lifetime paying in full. The sound of forks against champagne flutes was louder this time, sharper, almost mocking. My uncle, still standing like some master of ceremonies, grinned with the confidence of someone who thought he was delivering a gift. "I mean, let's be honest," he said, swirling his glass. 12 million is more than any one person needs, especially someone so humble, right?" There it was. The laughter didn't start all at once. It trickled. One awkward chuckle here, another forced giggle there, until the whole room rippled with it. Polite, fake, almost rehearsed, like they'd been waiting for this moment, like they knew. I stared at my hands, resting in my lap, gripping the fabric of my dress. I felt the texture of the thread beneath my fingertips. I focused on it, to stay grounded, to keep from shattering. "She's always been the generous one," my aunt chimed in, raising her glass. "Just think of all the things we could do together. As a family." That word, together, sounded like a threat. Someone behind me made a joke about upgrading their house. Another joked about clearing their credit cards. And then, as if on cue, the glasses clinked again. One big echoing cheer. "To family," someone called. I didn't raise my glass. No one noticed. A minute later, my cousin Jenna touched my shoulder and leaned in. Her perfume hit me first, jasmine and something synthetic. She smiled sweetly. "Too sweet. Can we talk?" she asked, already steering me toward the hallway. We stepped into a narrow corridor, out of sight but not out of earshot. I could still hear the music, the laughter, the sound of my name being passed around like a platter. She didn't waste time. "You don't need all that money, right?" she said, voice low, like it was some kind of secret confession. "I mean, you've always been the selfless one." There it was again. That word, selfless. "I'm starting a business," she continued. "Something real this time. I just need a little help, a loan, or even better, a gift." Her eyes searched mine, waiting for guilt to set in. I didn't answer, because in that moment I realized something I hadn't before. They weren't surprised I had the money. They were surprised I hadn't offered it to them first. It didn't happen all at once. The betrayal wasn't loud. It didn't arrive in a single moment of shouting or slammed doors. No, it came like paper cuts. Small, sharp, accumulating. After the party, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail. Every smirk, every clink of a glass, every half smile pretending to be joy. My mind was an autopsy table, and I was dissecting the night in pieces. How did they know? I hadn't told a soul. Not my mother, not my brother, not even my closest friend. The only person I'd spoken to, formally, was the estate attorney. A private firm, high-end, discreet, or so I thought. The next morning, I searched my emails. I checked every login, every document. I remembered that one day, 2 weeks after the will was read, I'd printed a confirmation letter at my mother's house. Her printer had been acting up, so I'd logged into my email on her laptop. I'd meant to log out. I never did. That was the first cut. The second came when I remembered my cousin, Daniel. He worked part-time at the law firm that handled Charles's estate. Filing clerk, background staff, the kind of position you forget about until it's too late. He'd always been curious about Charles. Asked me once if the old man had money. I brushed it off, thought he was joking. Now it felt like a prelude. I searched the guest list from the party. Daniel was there. I hadn't noticed, but of course he was. The third cut came when I found the bank statement, a single page wedged in the back of my desk drawer. It had my name, my new trust account, and a balance printed clean across the top. I must have left it out during my rush to finalize the paperwork. Maybe my mother saw it. Maybe she didn't. But someone did, and once one person knew, it didn't take long for the rest to smell blood. The story spread like syrup, slow but sticky. By the time I walked into that birthday party, I wasn't a person anymore. I was a check waiting to be signed. I sat in the living room that night, lights off, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Another message from Jenna. Just think about it. We're family. I turned the screen over. It was never one betrayal. It was 100 little ones, stacked quietly until they built a wall I hadn't seen, until I was on the outside. I went quiet. Not the kind of quiet that waits to be heard, but the kind that no longer needs to speak. I didn't return calls. I let texts pile up, unopened. The world kept spinning outside my window, but inside, everything slowed down. I moved through the hours like I was underwater. Calm, heavy, untouchable. I sat at the kitchen table one morning, the soft light of dawn stretching across the floor. A single beam hit the rim of my coffee cup. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full, of questions I hadn't dared to ask, of truths I'd kept locked beneath politeness. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel grief. I just felt done. Something clicked inside me, a quiet shift, like a switch in my spine had flipped from survive to choose. I opened my laptop, hands steady. I found the number buried in the folder my godfather's lawyer had sent weeks ago. I dialed. "Ms. Marlowe," the assistant said, cheerful. "How can we help you today?" I hesitated. Then the words came out, even and clear. "I need to know how to protect it." There was a pause. Then she transferred me. The lawyer came on the line. His voice was low, measured. "You mean protect? Your inheritance?" "Yes." "From your family?" I closed my eyes. The word tasted sharp. "Yes." He didn't sound surprised. "We can. There are ways to set boundaries. Irrevocable trusts, non-contest clauses, gift stipulations. It'll require signatures, paperwork, a bit of courage." Courage. I thought of all the times I'd loaned pieces of myself to keep the peace. All the silences I'd swallowed to avoid conflict. All the thank yous I never got, the debts never repaid, the love that always had terms. I thought of my godfather's letter, the one he left with the will. For when you fly, I'd always assumed that meant freedom. Maybe it meant protection. Maybe it meant both. "I want to move forward," I said. "Understood," he replied. "Let's start the process." And just like that I did. No confrontation. No fireworks. Just a decision made in the quiet of my own strength. And a calm I hadn't felt in years settling deep in my bones. 2 weeks later, I invited them all over again. No party planners this time. No decorations, no balloons, just a quiet dinner, home-cooked, simple. I set the table myself, white linen, plain silverware, a single candle flickering in the center. No music played, only the tick of the clock on the wall, steady and sharp. They arrived one by one, with smiles stretched too wide. My mother brought flowers, my aunt wore pearls, my cousin Jenna brought wine, already uncorked. My brother made a joke about getting the gang back together, and everyone laughed like the last gathering hadn't curdled something between us. We ate, we sipped, we made small talk. No one mentioned the inheritance, but I could feel it, thick, in the air like humidity before a storm. When the plates were cleared and dessert untouched, I stood. "I have something for each of you," I said calmly. My voice didn't tremble. I walked to the sideboard and picked up the small stack of envelopes, each, one addressed by hand. I handed them out like birthday cards, except this time, I didn't smile. They opened them slowly, like they were expecting checks. Instead, each one held a single-page legal document, clean, direct, irreversible. A waiver. It stated, in simple language, that each recipient acknowledged they were entitled to nothing further from me. No financial support, no gifts, no future claims to my trust or estate. If they signed, they would receive a single parting gift, small, symbolic. If they contested, they would receive nothing. The trust had been locked. This was the only path forward. There was silence. My uncle squinted at the paper like it was in another language. My cousin's mouth fell open. My mother blinked fast like she might cry. "What is this?" she asked, voice already cracking. "A gift," I said, "to both of us." "Clarity?" My brother scoffed. "Is this a joke?" "No," I replied, folding, my hands in front of me. "It's a boundary, signed by my attorney, filed with the trust. It's binding." Jenna tried to laugh it off. "But we're family." "I know," I said. "That's why I gave you this, so we never have to confuse love with leverage again." They sat with it, some angry, some stunned, some pretending to read it twice, hoping the words might change. They didn't, and neither did I. That night, I didn't blow out candles or smile for photos. I didn't apologize. I just watched the candle on the table burn lower and lower, until nothing was left but the quiet flicker of peace. The calls started that night. First it was my brother. 3 missed calls, then a voicemail so loud I could hear the anger before I pressed play. He said I was selfish, that I'd forgotten who helped me through the hard years, as if I hadn't been the one holding everyone else up. He ended it with a threat. "You'll regret this." Then came the messages. A group thread lit up with old photos, me as a child, smiling in my mother's lap. A caption from my aunt, "You don't just erase family." Below it, my mother replied with a broken heart emoji. I didn't respond. The next morning, my mother called. I let it ring, then she called again, and again. By noon, my voicemail was full. When I finally listened, her voice was cracking. "I just don't understand," she sobbed. "You've changed. You're so cold. This isn't you." But she was wrong. It was me. It had always been me. Just the version they'd never cared to meet. The one who drew lines. By day 3, my cousin Jenna sent a formal letter. She had hired a lawyer. Said she'd been emotionally manipulated into signing the waiver. Said I'd used my position of power to deprive her of her fair share. I forwarded the letter to my attorney. He called me within the hour, calm and certain. "She won't win," he said. "The documents are airtight. You were generous, more generous than necessary." We prepared a file, every message, every voicemail, every unwanted attempt to twist the truth. I logged them, stored them, Let them sit like evidence in a courtroom that would never open. They said I'd changed. They were right. I'd stopped apologizing for choosing peace over performance. I used to think strength meant holding everyone together. That love meant sacrificing without being asked. But now I saw it differently. Strength was knowing when to let go, when to stop proving, when to stop bleeding for people who only knew how to watch you do it. For the first time, I wasn't scared of being alone. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was clear. Their disappointment didn't wound me the way it used to. Their silence wasn't punishment. Their threats weren't storms. They were just noise, loud but harmless. Because beneath it all, something stronger, held steady. The truth. And the truth for once was mine. The envelope had been sitting in the bottom drawer of my desk for weeks. Cream-colored, thick paper, sealed with the same initials he used on every birthday card he ever sent me. CEMI hadn't opened it. Not out of fear, I just wasn't ready. But that night, after the last call faded into voicemail, after Jenna's lawyer backed off after the house finally exhaled into stillness, I lit a candle and sat on the floor. I held the letter in my hands for a long while before tearing the seal. His handwriting hadn't changed. Neat, slanted, careful. The kind of penmanship you don't see anymore. My dear girl, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. But you always knew how to read between the lines anyway, didn't you? I didn't leave you this because I thought you needed it. I left it because I knew you'd protect it. I watched the way you carried people. Quietly, constantly. And I wanted, for once, for something to carry you. Use this not just to survive, but to decide who deserves you. Not everyone who smiles at you means you well. And not everyone who needs you deserves to have you. I hope you build something beautiful, not for their applause, for your peace. Love always, Charles. I don't remember when the tears started. They weren't loud or desperate. They came like rain on a still pond, gentle, steady, and long overdue. I held the letter against my chest and let the silence hold me back. He saw me, not the version of me that gave and gave until she disappeared, but the one who stayed quiet and watched and hoped that someone one day might notice. He had. The words curled around me like a blanket. Not a goodbye, but a torch passed forward. The room smelled faintly of vanilla from the candle. The paper in my hand was warm now, lived in. I folded it carefully and placed it back in the envelope, then slid it into the old photo frame he once gave me. It had always held a picture of us on the pier. Now it held more. In a world that tried to take from me in whispers, his voice was the only one that gave. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel alone. I felt seen. The silence didn't come all at once. It settled in slowly, like mist over the water, filling the corners of my life where noise used to live. Months passed. My phone stopped buzzing. The group chats quieted. No more guilt-laced voicemails. No more questions dressed as concern. Just space. I moved to a small town by the coast. Somewhere the ocean could breathe, and so could I. The apartment was modest, a second-floor walk-up with creaky floorboards and windows that caught the morning sun just right. The kind of place where coffee tastes better just because the air is still. I started waking up early, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I'd walk along the shoreline with bare feet and salt-kissed skin, the sound of waves offering more comfort than any voice ever had. I started writing again, not for anyone else, just for me. Pages filled with stories that had waited years to be told. Stories about quiet girls who chose themselves, about endings that weren't tragic, just honest. I laughed more. Not loudly, not often. But the kind of laughter that comes from your chest. Surprising, clean, real. And I spent money. Not recklessly, but without the weight of someone else's need pulling at my sleeves. I bought good food. A soft chair. A telescope. Things that didn't have to make sense to anyone but me. I stopped explaining. I stopped apologizing. I stopped performing love like it was a job I was lucky to have. For the first time, I wasn't surviving. I wasn't keeping the peace, earning approval, or buying belonging. I was choosing. Every morning, every quiet moment, every step away from what had hurt me, I was choosing. And in the quiet, I didn't feel small. I felt free.